So what does that mean for Jerod Mayo, who the team announced they would be extending and turned down defensive coordinator and head coaching interviews? Tommy Curran writes, title change, however, may not be in the offing. Ironically, it may be because Mayo subscribes to something head coach Bill Belichick espoused, that titles are superfluous.
Thanks, buddy.
Superfluous. All right, so if that's the case, what does it mean, Tommy Curran, that Joe Judge is the assistant head coach and the liaison?
Well, what I find interesting is a preposition that's not present in Albert's news, and I wonder if this preposition will come to light. It's to, the word to. Assistant head coach means you are a heartbeat away. You're the VP. If something happens to the president, you step in. Assistant to the head coach means, what can I do for you today, Bill? There's a big difference there, and I think that if he is sliding into the Matt Patricia role of 2 years ago, it will be more assistant to the head coach. You need me to break down third downs? You need me to make sure that all this stuff's in order? I'll do that. Do you need me to work on contracts, call this agent? I'll do that. So I think that just indicated by Albert at 6 o'clock on early edition, it's more of that role than
I agree.
I'm a heartbeat away.
Okay, I agree. How do you feel about him in that secondary role that you talked about? That's still embarrassing.
For Joe?
He's incompetent, Tom.
Well, I guess
he's an incompetent.
The upshot of it is, to me, that, look, he was part of the offense last year. It was explained in a very good Andrew Callahan, Karen Garegian article that it was dysfunctional, that he and Mac didn't get along, and that by the end it was fairly disrespectful and Joe would insert himself. The fact that he has been moved summarily away from the offense.
No, but the fact that he's doing anything, Tom, anything of substance. He's doing contracts like Patricia did.
Mike, you've said it before.
He's a liaison. He's not competent.
It is the home for wayward coaches, and we've seen that, whether it's Brett Bielema, whether it's Mike Lombardi after his GM stint in Cleveland, whether it's Floyd Reese, now it's Patricia and Judge. These guys come here and they serve a purpose for a period of time while they're under contract or being paid. I don't know what the purpose is.
How does it help the team?
How does it help the team if it takes something off your plate? I don't know specifically how well he signs the contracts. That's what Patricia was doing a couple years ago. To me, Mike,
it's a
tempest in a teapot.
It doesn't help the team. It's just it's Bill servicing his crew, and it doesn't help the team. And no one said anything about it for years because Brady was winning him championships. But now that he's gone, all these bad habits are being exposed.
You're right.
And the fact that the owner still lets him do it, to me, it, Mike, blows me away. And I have an apology coming up for you after you go.
No, what's really amazing about I'm glad you brought up ownership, because Robert Kraft, at the end of the season, we all got excited. Kraft said, okay, Kraft, Patriots, released a statement. We're going to interview offensive coordinators. We're going to do that. That interview is coming. So that essentially ended the OC career of Matt Patricia and Joe Judge. Mm-hmm. So he came in. He knew what that brought about for the Patriots in 2022. It was a disaster. So if he saw that happen, why do you think Robert Kraft is letting this happen again?
Well, I think that Robert Kraft, honestly, if we apply it, Bill Belichick never signed off on, hey, let's put out a statement that we're going to go look for an offensive coordinator and put a title on it.
That's what I'm saying.
They went out and they got the best guy that they could. So to me, that is a turbocharge to the entire roster. You guys, I know what you're going to say. They haven't done diddly so far with their actual on-field roster. But to me, you go from a negative coaching situation that the owner then pushes forward to get a positive coaching situation. It helps the whole team.
But you still have a remnant, though. You still have a remnent from the negativity of 2020
in Joe
Judge.
Yeah. I understand.
Making him a liaison, which I guess the crazy part. You're giving him more access. You're giving him access to other parts of the organization. You should be minimizing him or kicking him out.
Over 20-odd years, if you create a fiefdom for yourself and you bring all this along with you and you understand, as Robert Kraft does, that Bill has these things that he wants to do and reward people, and Joe Judge, when you're Robert Kraft, you shake his hand, he looks you in the eye, you have a good conversation, you're like, well, what harm can it do?
Okay,
what harm does it do?
I thought a lot of harm because he's hiring incompetent people. Schiano, Patricia, Lombardi, these guys are not competent, viable NFL people, and I know that because as soon as they leave here and someone has to pay them, no one pays them. They have no work, okay? So that's why. They're incompetent people. It sends a horrible message about cronyism and all these things. And, Mike, this is the apology. When that press release came out about the offensive coordinator, when that letter came out to the season ticket holders from Kraft, I thought Kraft's involved. He's pushing Belichick. He's busting his hump. He's going to inject himself this offseason. And it's been a big fat zero since. It feels like all he did was send out that press release. Otherwise, it's been business as usual, marginal free agent moves, no spending, just on the margins, as Bill Belichick has always done. These horrible moves on the coaching staff, protecting his people. Kraft it's been a big fraud. It's
Who do you
it's been a press release, and that's it.
He apologized.
You were right.
I'm going to tag in real quick. Who do you ascribe the hiring of Bill O'Brien to? Who do you credit for that?
I think Kraft gave a push, but it's ultimately still Bill's guy. What's happened since leads me to believe that Kraft is really not involved as I thought he would be. I want him to be, and this is bad news.
I don't know what you want. I mean,
operate.
that's the thing is, do you want him pounding the table and asking to time to Bucky Jones as he was criticized for in 1998?
No, I want him breaking up the coaching staff. I want him breaking up the thing that Bill's been doing on his staff, and it probably permeates the entire football organization as well, breaking that thing up.
And you bring up a great point because you asked the question, okay, who do you ascribe this to? All right, I want to talk about Jerod Mayo. Is that Robert Kraft bringing that about, the succession plan? Or is that Bill Belichick saying, hey, I drafted him, that's my guy, I brought him on the coaching staff? Who gets credit for Jerod Mayo? And what's his status now since Joe Judge is the assistant head coach?
Yeah, it's a great question. And that quote that we had where, Bill Belichick not espousing titles, it's interesting because I think if Jerod wanted to be defensive coordinator or assistant head coach, certainly by what the Krafts have said, they could do that. But staying as the linebackers coach certainly gives him the ability to, if things don't go great this year, and they weren't going great last year, if he wants to make a lateral move to a defensive coordinator position someplace else, he's free to go. He's free to interview with someplace else because it would be a promotion. I don't think he's about to do that, but the general point is not having that title gives him more freedom in some ways. As to what's going to happen, he's made it very clear he wants to be a head coach in the league. He made it very clear that he was willing to go and interview other places until the Patriots made sure that he stayed. So, ipso facto, ipso facto, Jerod Mayo was satiated in what the future for him is in New England. So how long is he going to sit there? I mean, Josh McDaniel sat there for a few years. Bill showed him his world and he ended up going to Las Vegas. I would imagine that probably in 2 years' time, you could, if you're putting money on if Bill Belichick is coaching in 2026, I would say the odds might be long.
So we talked about nepotism and the incompetence, some of the incompetence on the coaching staff. Devin McCourty told a great story about Steve Belichick, and I want to get your take on this because I think McCourty was trying to be, he was a 12-time captain, so he was trying to be gracious and say all these great things about Steve Belichick. Oh, look at this. But he went on the Green Light podcast with Chris Long, and he had this to say about Steve Belichick being named safeties coach in 2019. He says, we've got all these veterans, and he walks in and he goes, yo, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I don't know what the F I'm doing right now. My dad told me 2 weeks ago that I was even going to have this job, and now I'm just sitting here like, I don't know. What's next? In that first year, we all just worked together. So, Dev, Dev, as well as anybody, better than anybody, do you take this story as a negative or a positive for Steve Belichick?
I think it's, for Steve, it's a positive. He's transparent. For Bill, it's a bit of a negative.
Yes.
I mean, we're kicking people, throwing people into the deep end and saying start swimming when you have a billion,
2016,
$5 billion business?
They won the Super Bowl the year that Bill did this, so no one, and anyone who points it out is some sort of a-hole for even pointing out, well, they won the Super Bowl. Now that Brady's not here, Bill's still pulling the same crap, and where are they?
I think in that instance.
So his bad habits and the way he's been running the business is being exposed now.
I think there's a through line that runs from that decision that worked out just fine to the decision in 2022 where you say, what's the worst that can happen if I put Matt and Joe there?
Good point.
It worked before. What's the worst that can happen?
Bill leaves out the part that he had Tom Brady. He still won't accept that it was Tom Brady. That was the key to the whole thing. He thinks, I can throw this guy in here, throw that guy in there. It's going to work because I got the answers. Just ignoring the fact that it was Brady, he still doesn't get it.
Fascinating. I know we got a break, but there was a fascinating Brian Daboll article in The Athletic this week that talked about how he went about hiring his staff, and he cast an impossibly wide net.
Yeah, exactly. Good point.